while I was resting. Greetings and welcome to While I Was Resting, a show in which we talk to actors, musicians, performers, whatever, to anybody in the art world, the creative world, about all the kind of bizarre, odd, ridiculous jobs they may have done whilst they were between their professional engagements. And today's guest is none other than my good friend, Mr. Jeremy Todd. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey, Jace, how fantastic to be here.
Fantastic to have you.
Oh, dear, what a thrill it's been just sitting down and listing all the really stupid jobs I've done.
It's quite an interesting thing to sort of sit down and go back through all the sort of past things you've done. Some things pop into your head, strange memories, locations, people, events. When you just sort of sit down and make a list of your almost your weird CV.
Totally. It makes me realise just what an extraordinary sort of last sort of 30 years I've had.
Indeed.
You know, I said to my wife this morning, I said, can you remember some of the daft things I've done? She instantly reeled off about 20 strange and bizarre things that I'd done in the time that we've been married. You know, and I thought, actually, it just make me, quite an interesting sort of dinner party guest, because there's all sorts of ridiculous things that you end up doing that no one would ever dream. People who have normal lives and normal jobs, don't talk about being paid in chicken tonight. As sort of bottles of jars of chicken tonight.
But it is
sauce.
a currency, for some. As a struggling actor, a few jars of chicken tonight can go a long way.
I can tell you how I got a garage full of tomato and garlic chicken tonight.
Well, let's save that story, because I think a good point to start is to rewind and go back to where we first met. Which we were just talking about, and I said, we met on... And then I realised that we'd actually met on a job before the job I was talking about, and that was when we were both auditioning to be like a public audition like they have for X Factor and stuff, but to be the kind of face, the body, the model of Action Man. So this was the company that make Action Man. I can't remember the toy company.
Was it Mattel?
Mattel, I think, something like that. Correct us if I'm wrong. But, the thing that we were doing was they had real people there, real buff guys who turned up. And to make it, you see, a lot of people don't realise that often when they see like a funny story in the news, like the PR company behind it has engineered some humorous angle of it to try and make it more newsworthy. And so we were that angle. We were like, there was about 5 or 6 of us who were complete no-hopers for all kinds of ridiculous reasons that we kind of that we had no chance of getting the job as Action Man. And it was funny that we turned up and the press would kind of focus in on that and get one of those amusing stories, because it was still back in the day when the news had like the "and finally" section. So, you might go on that and they get loads of publicity, more so than if it was just a bunch of beefcakes there. So,
that's right. And the only thing I had in common with Action Man was his hair. I mean, that was it. I mean, nothing else sort of fitted whatsoever, But I mean, I did my best. I turned up in a smart suit. I thought, I'll probably come along as a sort of a poor man's James Bond,
Yeah.
What were you dressed as again?
I was in kind of another version of James Bond, because I was wearing a safari suit. So I was kind of 1970s Roger James Bond.
All right, yeah.
And I got some I didn't wear glasses back then, but I had some Eric Morecambe glasses on and a safari suit. And obviously, the reason I was there because I'm very small, and it was and there was all these massive guys there, so the press were like focusing in on me, and asking lots of questions.
I mean, there were a few guys there who you thought, absolutely, he could be Action Man, no problem at all.
Oh yeah, there were beefy, rugged guys there, and they just didn't seem to get why we were there. They didn't quite get the concept of a PR stunt.
I think they were slightly miffed.
Seriously, bewildered. And they were also slightly miffed because we were like the ones there for the comedy value.
Yeah.
It was a more interesting story that we were there.
Yeah.
So the press were kind of focusing on us.
Yes.
So there's a picture in the newspaper of all these guys, and the press had got, and the one that made it into the paper is the one with me at the front doing like a pose.
Yeah, right. I remember seeing the picture. Yeah.
So there's all these kind of guys who, why are they getting all the attention? They've got no chance.
Yeah.
But that's what happens,
Yeah. I think another friend of ours turned up and he was wearing, he had a snorkel and a mask. You know, and he just stood there all day with his mask and his snorkel in his
Yeah.
mouth. Never said anything. Just stood there all day. You know, I don't know if he was wearing swimming trunks or a swimming outfit, but I mean that was basically it. You know.
Yeah.
So like you say, the more ridiculous we were in those days, and let's face it, we
Yeah.
were prepared to do all sorts of ridiculous
Oh,
things.
absolutely, and of course that's what this show is about, the ridiculous things we've done.
Yeah.
So going back to you, I know you've got in front of you a little list. So let's delve into this list. Let's reel off a few. See what you're going to pick out of that.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? I'm going to start with something which is probably not so bizarre, but it's one of my favourite odd jobs that I did when I wasn't acting, and that was being an usher and a kind of the odd job man at the Royal Court Theatre.
Right? Yeah.
And I was obviously in Chelsea, Sloane Square. It was a great job because you got free tickets to see all the shows. But I was there I must have stayed there for about 18 months or so, you know, doing these, you know, being in the usher, selling the ice cream, hanging up people's coats. But there was one bit where for 6 weeks I was the cleaner of the theatre as well. So somebody went off sick and they said, Jeremy, would you come in and be our sort of substitute cleaner? I had to get in at the crack of dawn at 6 o'clock. And I was cleaning the dressing rooms of quite a starry cast who were doing this great play by Howard Brenton. You know, it was a Howard Brenton trilogy. Leslie Manville was in the cast, and a few other. Larry Lamb was in the cast, and a few others. And it was in the days when you could smoke in your dressing room. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'd walk into these dressing rooms, and I swear the smoke was just still hanging in these dressing rooms. They were just disgusting. They were awful. But anyway,
Marvellous.
so it was a dreadful job, and the theatre itself was terribly run down. I mean, it was desperate for refurb. I mean, since then it has been refurbed, but at the time it was just dreadful. And the stairs, the back stairs that all the actors and the staff used were steep stairs, but they were covered in carpet, which was tatty and rotten. And I just used to mop the whole lot, you know. I mean, the whole thing just got mopped down with a bucket of water. Anyway, pretty grubby. But I stuck with that for about 18 months and then thought, you know what, it's about time I got myself an acting job. And I think fortunately something did turn up and I managed to make my excuses and leave, you know. But over the years, I mean, I'll run through a few of the things, if you like, that I've done. I remember working for a company who used to send out people, you know, people who were prepared to dress up as costume characters.
Oh yes, I've done that.
Have you done that as well?
Yeah, I've done that as well.
I mean, I spent a long time being a Power Ranger.
That's quite a good one.
Yeah,
because it's not too hot.
No, and I was. Can you guess which one I was?
I'm not au fait with the.
Right.
And what colour were you?
White. White Power Ranger.
And what's your Power Ranger skill?
Oh, I don't know. It was throwing something that he could, like a boomerang.
Was it a boomerang?
Well, it might have been a boomerang.
Okay,
Yeah,
if it's like a boomerang, it
It's
could
a
well be a boomerang. I can't think of many boomerang adjacent weapons,
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, but you can just imagine they would have over-designed it. So the kind of thing that the kids
was
would
like
want.
a mega boomerang.
And float
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't think I actually threw it. It might have
Health
been
and
too
safety,
dangerous.
yeah.
But Fred Flintstone was another one of my favourite characters.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah.
get to do the yabba dabba doos? and all
No,
that?
because you couldn't speak.
I know you can't, can you?
No, I couldn't speak.
So were you dressed as Fred Flintstone?
I was dressed-
Or were you in a full Fred Flintstone outfit, meaning the whole head was Fred Flintstone?
Yeah, it looked like Fred Flintstone.
Right, so you were in a...
I was just inside it.
Inside, yeah. Yeah, that's the ones I've
sweating
done.
cobs.
Yeah.
You know, so I
that's
mean,
the
yeah.
hardest. Because Power Ranger's good. You're in a nice lycra outfit. You're
That's
not
right.
sweat.
And my face, you know, so just a suit, just a lycra suit, and I think a hat, and gloves, and like the weapon of choice, you know. So that was easier to do. But Fred was quite tough.
Yeah.
You know, Fred was quite tough. But we also did a lot of work with Dennis the Menace. Now he was great because he'd be quite naughty with Dennis.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and they were relaunching the annual, so the Beano, and they just wanted me to wander around town and just get into scrapes. They said, "Look, you're Dennis. You can do all sorts of naughty things."
Right.
So me and a couple of minders would be wandering around. There'd be people taking photographs of us, you know, documenting the whole thing, and we did a whole variety of silly stunts like you would imagine, like walking in the middle of the road in Oxford Street and stopping the traffic, and basically just going up and talking to people. But we were wandering around, I think it was Covent Garden, and we suddenly realised we were standing outside the Garrick Club. So the guy said, "Come on, let's do this." So we ran into the Garrick Club.
Right.
So my friends said,
Obviously, not members.
not members.
No.
And that's what they said to me. They said to Dennis the Menace, "You're not a member." My mind said, "Surely, come on, Dennis the Menace."
Yeah.
Honour a member for the day. But anyway, so my claim to fame was being thrown out of the Garrick Club whilst dressed as Dennis the Menace.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
If you're going to get thrown out of the Garrick Club, do it in style.
Yeah, absolutely. But they didn't see the funny side of it. They were terribly po-faced and serious about the whole thing, But and there were so many. I mean, these jobs. that sustain us. When we're not
Just
acting.
keep you going. Yeah.
This costume job. I worked for them for must have been 5 years. Doing all sorts of weird and wonderful and bizarre jobs and going all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, I did for a period the same thing myself.
Right.
Quite a few costume jobs, and again, because I'm small, I can fit into a lot of costumes. So I was often a Rugrat or a Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I was Kipper the dog, I think. Or what was he called? Some kid's dog.
Yeah.
And I'd get sent to Leicester Bookshop, and he'd be like, "Here's Kipper!" And he's just waving, and some kids would run away screaming. Some kids would run up and give you a hug. So some people would kind of forget that there's a human inside the costume and decide to rugby tackle you for lols.
Yeah. Oh,
Did you have that happen? Yeah.
One guy came up to me with a lighter and tried to set fire to the costume.
Yeah, they just don't somehow get that there's a person inside, do they? Some
they're
people.
moving.
Yeah.
The other side of that was that every costume also had a minder.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'd be the minder.
Right, yeah, of course.
And I remember at one great gig, they sent me to Wembley Stadium. And it was for the Charity Shield match. And it must have been early 90s. And it was Manchester United versus Newcastle United at Wembley Stadium, absolutely packed out. And the actor in the suit, you may remember him, is a guy called Richard Opie.
Yes, I know Richard. Yeah.
And Richard was dressed as a football.
Okay.
He was a giant football with his big sticky out hands. And
Did his head stick out the top? Or
No,
was
he didn't. No, his head was. He just had little
eyes.
Yeah, eyes looking out the front. And he's wandering around the perimeter of the pitch. And I'm standing next to him as we wander around the pitch. And I'm thinking, what an incredible view of this football match. As the teams are warming up. Now, the incredible thing about it was that, I don't know how much you know about football, but that was the very first game that Alan Shearer ever played for Newcastle United. He was like the hero of the town, the returning prodigal son.
Okay.
And he was the last person to come out of the changing room, down that famous tunnel and onto the pitch. And I kid you not, me and the giant football was standing right next to him as he walked out onto the football pitch. And this giant of a man walked past, and I could see the name Shearer written on the back, as these about 50,000 Newcastle fans all cheered and raised the roof of Wembley Stadium. Anyway, what an incredible view! We're literally standing next to him as he walked out the tunnel.
Oh, so that was a good one.
Yeah, cracking job. So it was.
Yeah.
It was always, there were all these extra benefits, that I had, and again another one at Wembley, Rugby League Challenge Cup final. Being the guy on the pitch. Dressed as Dennis the Menace again.
Oh, right, Dennis is back.
Dennis is back. I don't know why, but they thought Dennis was an appropriate figure.
As you do.
And I basically had to put a rugby ball on the centre spot and then sort of kick it as far as I could. And my brothers, who were big rugby league fans, they were in the stadium. They were in the stands watching. And I'm thinking, suckers, they probably paid 30 quid a piece for their tickets. But I was getting
paid to be there.
Paid to be on the pitch. And then we got tickets to go and see the game as well, But anyway, yeah, so there've been some really kind of nice little payoffs for these daft things that we end up doing. But those costume characters, like I say, went on and on and on. That company's still around, they're still doing it. Still keeping actors.
Oh, yeah,
fed.
I mean, it's still a huge little sideline for people.
Yeah,
and the great thing is, you can stay anonymous. So, you could if say Ewan McGregor was falling on hard times, he could be the guy in the football that no one would ever know.
No.
So
I bet
I'm sure there's been some famous faces in some of those costumes over the years that later kind of made it big.
Yeah, they're probably taking it off their CVs. Don't talk about it anymore.
Yeah, don't mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a great job. And I think... in the end, I just thought, no, I've had too much of sweat, dressing up in these sweaty costumes. Maybe you just get too old for it. I don't know. But,
Yeah, I think there comes a point when you do these jobs that you think, oh, right, enough.
Yeah.
I've got to sort of, it's been fun for a while, but
Yeah.
maybe I can't
So I thought,
go
no,
on doing this forever.
I need to get myself something a bit more reliable that maybe sort of pays a bit better.
Yeah.
So I went from dressing up in fancy dress to doing Did you ever work at the Ideal Home exhibition?
No.
Right. Oh my goodness. Well, you dodged a bullet there, because I went to the Ideal Home exhibition to sell.
Was it those latte things? Yes, that made them frothy.
Frothy milk.
Frothy milk.
Yeah, they were called Aero Lattes.
Well, lattes. I remember you gave me one.
Yeah, right.
And it was good.
Yeah,
you just stick it in your cup and you make all your milk frothy.
Well, they actually worked.
They do, yes.
Yes, yeah. Which was strange, because you'd often speak to other people who were doing similar jobs. They'd be selling other things.
Yeah.
You know, there's a bloke selling cheese graters and another bloke selling this sort of magic sort of cream that would get all the the gunk off your oven tops and the grill and everything. And you quickly learn to realise that an awful lot of these things didn't actually work. You just need to know how to demonstrate them. They look like they work, but once you got them home, they were impossible. You know, they were just it was all a bit of a strange environment. But the great thing about the Aero Latte was that it actually properly worked.
I can testify to that,
good
yeah.
heavens above, yeah. I've still got one to this very day.
Amazing.
And again, that was another one of those jobs that was fitted in nicely, because it would be weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sundays. Ideal Home exhibition was a month, but I mean the rest of the year would be off all sorts of places. You know, the big county shows, Yorkshire show, you know, the Royal Welsh show.
So it was a travelling gig. This little whiskey thing actually got you out to see the world.
Yeah,
yeah.
And they'd put me up in a little B&B somewhere, you know, in the middle of Norfolk, and to go into the middle of a field, you know, for the weekend, selling the great and the good, you know, something that they didn't realise they needed.
Yeah.
You know, but masses of gigs with the Aero Latte, you know, and I actually segued from there into, you know, selling food processors and all sorts of bits and bobs, you know, and oh, good heavens.
The classics.
The classics, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, dear.
I do remember a little video of you that I cut together for you presenting stuff. And it had you selling your QVC style.
That's right.
It had you selling
It was QVC.
Was it QVC?
Yeah.
Oh, right. I'm sure lots of actors as well and people have, done work on QVC and always, a good source of income.
Yeah.
But I remember, one thing I always remember about you, because I thought, oh, Jeremy's telling porkies.
Go on.
I think it was for the viewers up north as a selling point. I just remember you sort of saying,
I know what you're going to say.
What you said something along the lines of it makes a great cappuccino. A cappuccino can cost you £5 on the King's Road. And I thought, even to this day, I don't think I've ever paid £5 for a cappuccino.
Really, no, I probably was overstating it.
I think you were.
Yeah, I thought you were going to mention the fact that I also said you could use it for whipping up your Yorkshire puddings.
Right. Did it not work for that?
Well, it did, but it probably wasn't quite as efficient as it was, with frothing milk.
Right, no.
Because
that was
just a bit longer.
That was its raison d'etre.
Yeah. It was for frothing milk, and it did that job absolutely beautifully. Yeah, that was a great job, and I worked for them for donkey's years, and they kept me sane, and and solvent. I reckon I must have worked for them for 5 or 6 years, but it's just a bizarre life. Almost like working in the circus, which I've also done as well, by the way.
Right, well, let's talk about that next.
Yeah. Again, this is going back early days, and I was looking for an equity card.
Ah.
And oddly, in those days, you couldn't work unless you were an equity card. But you couldn't get an equity card unless
you got work.
Yeah, unless you got work. There was this sort of catch-22 situation, which was just farcical. And everyone was looking for the same, there were like hen's teeth equity cards. But I came across this guy, and his name was Jules Baker, and he ran a circus, and it was like an outdoor circus. So it was a circus but without a big top.
Okay.
So he would go to events, big fetes, and sort of, again, country shows where there'd be entertainment and acts on, and basically he'd work in a big arena that was just a staked out field, basically. There'd be a big ring in the middle of the field. And his act was called, or his circus was called, Jules Baker's Battling Cumberland Giants.
Catchy name.
I know. And he was a prop maker, Jules. And he'd made these giant men who were shaped like wrestlers. They were like 10 foot tall. And each one needed an actor to kind of strap it on its back like a rucksack.
Okay.
And then they'd have this wrestling match.
Yeah.
You see. So there were 2 actors doing that, if you can imagine such a thing. And then there'd be me dressed up as a clown, and my job was to wander around the circumference while all the action was going on.
Like a classic clown.
A classic clown.
Red nose.
Yeah, red nose, but a bit punky, So I had spiky hair and and sort of safety pins and big metal buckle belts and what have you, and big boots, and braces, and my job, was basically just to introduce the various rounds of the wrestling match. But while the giants were resting, I'd sort of entertain the crowd, And again, we'd be a different place every day, for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, as it were. Sometimes we'd be somewhere for the weekend. But so that was a curious one. But Jules was a fascinating bloke, because he manufactured and made these. They were inflatable, by the way. Did I mention that?
No.
No. Well, they were inflatable, so they were like a huge balloon. You imagine that?
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, much, much tougher than whatever they make balloons out of.
Well, yes, because they'd pop as soon as you started fighting.
Yeah. But Jules was an interesting bloke, because he'd been to art school in Leeds, and for his dissertation, for his final piece, he decided that he was going to build an invisible house in Roundhay Park.
Interesting.
Yeah. So in order to make this a reality, what he had to do was hire all the ladders and the scaffolding, which he was able to erect in this spot. And from this vantage point of these planks, the scaffolding, the ladders, everything that you'd imagine that you'd need to build a house, he went ahead and he built an invisible house.
Okay.
And people would come and watch him.
Right.
as he built the invisible house.
So he was going through all the motions, was he?
He was going through all the motions.
Yeah.
He had it all properly planned out, and he was a real stickler for detail. So I'm saying he would have properly built it.
Yeah.
And of course, all the people who were necessarily come down to invigilate would have to come and watch him as he sort of wandered around his raised platforms, in this place in Roundhay Park, as he built this invisible house. So you can just imagine he was a bit daft. Was Jules.
It sounds marvellous.
Yeah, absolutely. And it would take a mind like that to come up with something. I know what I'll do for a living. I'll make some inflatable wrestlers and tour the country with my circus.
The world's needs more of this kind of thinking.
Oh, what a time that was. What a
here's
time
the doggy.
So there I was. So that was my time as a clown, and I'm delighted to say that Equity gave me my Equity card, which I still carry with me to this very day, and that must have been about 30 odd years ago, 31, 32 years ago.
Well, I'm sure not so much now, but I'm sure there's a lot of actors who've got a lot of stories of jobs that they've done specifically to get their actors' equity card, to get cabaret performers, etc., singers. Because it was very much a closed shop. You had to have an equity card, but to get an equity card, you had to have done some sort of performance work. So. We were just talking before about people who were like club singers.
To
get their cards.
Sure.
You had to prove that you'd done a certain amount of paid work.
That's right.
In the entertainment field. So you had to sort of, send in all your contracts and receipts and things.
Yeah, everything.
Like,
you had to do all of that. 6, I think it was at least, or maybe more. But I mean, they wanted to see proof of payment, proof of performance. You couldn't just make it up. They were pretty thorough about it. Because a lot of actors were trying to think, what are the alternative routes in here? And kind of the whole kind of cabaret circus side of things was quite a it was a very viable alternative. Because for the RSC, for instance, they had two equity cards to give away every season.
Okay,
just 2.
Right, yeah.
2. Any theatre company, that's it. Every year, a pair of equity cards to give away. You just imagine the deluge of people trying to get hold of those equity cards, so it's no wonder that people branched out and did other stuff.
Fields, whatever works.
Good heavens.
So that's circus.
Good heavens. Yeah, I can't. Sometimes I just think about it. The stuff that I've done. It's just mind-boggling sometimes to realise just the extraordinary variety of stuff. I mean, we talked about being a member in the queue and meeting each other in the queue.
We were queuing for so we were fake auditionees on this occasion.
That's right.
That was the first one we talked about. The second one was where PR companies will pay people to queue for things to make it seem like there's a demand for them.
yeah.
And on this particular occasion, they wanted a more interesting queue. So we were all queued outside Virgin Megastore on Oxford Street, dressed as different characters for a Star Wars game.
Yeah.
So there were some Star Wars characters there, what they kind of call now cosplay, which is not a word people used back then.
Yeah.
But a bunch of guys turned up who liked dressing up as stormtroopers in their spare time.
Yeah.
Who just, so they just did that all the time, and they took it all very seriously. And then there was like us lot. It was in a variety of costumes. I was an Ewok. You were, I believe, a Beefeater.
Oh, yeah. It must look bizarre to people going past thinking, what's that guy doing in the queue?
Why is there a Beefeater queuing for a computer game?
Yeah. Standing next to a Disney princess.
There was a Buddhist monk.
Yes.
There was a Chelsea pensioner.
Yeah.
There was yeah.
Oh, my word. Yeah.
A nun.
A nun.
There was a nun there.
Yeah.
Fake nun.
Yeah.
My friend Natalie.
And indeed it was Natalie, of course. Yeah. Gosh, that was a time. And I in fact, you mentioned Natalie.
Yeah.
I did another job with Natalie, similar to the thing where we were kind of fake audience members.
Oh, it wasn't. What was it? What was it for? I think I was there.
Really?
What was it for?
AT&T or something up in...
No, it wasn't that. But I've been a fake audience member too.
It was up in Edinburgh?
No, it wasn't this.
Right, okay.
But yeah, I've done that with a few people.
It was terrifying.
Yeah?
It was terrifying because I had to pretend to be an employee. Because I had to be plausible. So I had to get there in the morning. I had to kind of infiltrate because it was a conference for this company. And basically this organisation laid all the cables, for all the communication and stuff. And they had gangs of people who were engineers. And I was one of these so-called engineers. And they wanted me to completely infiltrate the conference so that people trusted me. Because one of the absolute no-no at this conference was if your phone went off. And the first thing that the bloke who opened and was chairing the conference said, if anybody's phone rings in the audience, you have to come on stage and sing a song. Okay. Well, guess who that person was?
Was you?
It was me.
Right.
And so basically, but not until the conference had been up and running for about an hour and a half. So Natalie was sat next to me. She had a job as well. I can't remember what hers was, but basically, after about an hour and a half, someone deliberately, rings me and my phone goes off, and suddenly the whole conference, this room, there must have been 1,000 people in this room. Everybody goes, "Oh," as my phone goes, "Diddle-a-da, diddle-a-da, diddle-a-da-da," and the whole conference grinds to a halt, and the bloke stands up and says, "Right, who was that?" And everybody's looking at me, and I'm terrified because I know I've got to walk up on stage and sing. This is my penance for daring to let my phone go off. So I have to edge my way out of the aisle, walk down the walk of shame, up the steps and onto the stage, and there's the CEO of this company. Say, "Right, who are you?" And I had to talk about who I actually was.
Okay.
This character they'd given me.
Right.
The job I did, the team I was working in. I remember I was Reading based. I was one of the guys who laid the cables. I was an engineer.
So as an actor, it's kind of the same kind of preparation you do for something like Hamlet. You're getting into your character, researching the part.
Yeah. And anything he asked me, because it's all set up, of course. I mean, he knew this was all going to happen.
Of course, yeah.
But anything he asked me, I had the appropriate response, and then blow me. He said, "Right, okay, off you go then. What are you going to sing?"
Yeah.
So I had to stand there on his stage, and I sang something from The Sound of Music. Anyway, I got a big cheer and a big round of applause, and as I sheepishly walked back to my seat, but that was hard, knowing. But
did anybody find you out? Because presumably all this stuff you'd made up, there'd be people there going, "Well, I've never seen him in this this office,
maybe
or
so, yeah,
part of this team."
There would have been people there thinking, "I'm sure I don't know that bloke."
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, that they gave it all to me. They said, "This is who you are. This is what you are. This is what you did before. You know, give me a bit of background, a bit of plausibility, you know." But as soon as that was done, I mean, I think we basically just sort of disappeared into the day, you know, after that, because once the job was done, we thought, right.
Better Scarper.
That actually was quite terrifying. You know, the anticipation of that moment when I knew the phone was going to ring.
Right. Yeah. Because even if you know it's happening and you've kind of been paid for it, you're still in a massive auditorium with thousands of people, and the embarrassment of that happening is going to kick in. Yeah. Because nobody wants to be everyone looking at them because the phone's going off.
It had to be real as well. Yeah. Because they wanted to be. I can assure you, it pretty much was as well.
A bit of method acting there.
Yeah, yeah. But dressing up back again, I mean, I've done my stint as Santa as well, you know. I've done lots. Oh, but
yeah, I mean, Santa's such an archetype for, you know, the middle-aged male actor. It's like Christmas comes along, and it's like, oh, need a bit of extra work.
Yeah.
Let's don the beard.
Indeed,
and the fake tummy for some.
Yeah, so I got my first Santa gig with the Ministry of Fun and Selfridges, and did a couple of seasons there. And then I got a gig. Someone said to me they're looking for someone to be Santa at Kew Gardens.
Okay.
And I wasn't very old. I mean, I must have only been sort of, I don't know, late 30s maybe. You know? I mean, not your typical Santa bloke at all. But, you know, they had this wonderful costume that they made for me, and the beard and the hat and everything. And they went very Nordic with the design, so it didn't look like your typical...
So you were a cool Santa.
I was a cool Santa. With some beautiful kind of embroidery on a shirt that they'd made for me, and lovely big sort of, you know, wizard sleeves on this, you know, this coat, which was multicoloured as opposed to just being red.
Oh, very nice.
It was really beautiful. And I was Santa for Kew for years and years and years. And you get an interesting class of people who go to Kew, you know. So
what's the kind of mix of?
Well, they're all kind of. It's very middle class.
Of course.
You know, I used to always ask the kids, you know, what does your father do? And this boy said to me, "Oh, my father's an explorer." I said, what? So where is he now? He said he's in the North Pole. I said, what?
What? He's like, I should be there.
So literally, his dad was an explorer. It was away for Christmas. You know, they're doing this kind of North Pole challenge.
Okay.
You know, and so that's the kind of person you get at Kew. And then, of course, I also did Santa gigs in sort of shopping centres. I remember doing Slough.
Okay, not quite
the same. Yeah, so you meet lots of lovely people, but people with some. I kid you not, I met two kids one day. One was called Rooney, the other one was called Beckham. And we're talking first names here.
Yeah, right.
You know,
yeah.
I'm assuming that their parents were Man United fans. You know, I think I managed to work that one out for myself. But but very, very different. You know, groups of people that you'd have to manage and work with. You know, and. But yeah, the Santa stuff still crops up now every now and again. And
I guess as Santa, you've got to kind of manage expectations of the little ones. Because they're going to come in and ask for the dream present. But, you know, you're going to have to sort of look at their parents, and their eyes are going to go, don't promise that.
Yeah. You became a dab hand at, you know, parents would invariably stand behind as the child stood in front of you. And you'd get to look and they'd be going, no, nodding, shaking their heads, you know, giving him the thumbs up.
I want a bicycle. No, I can't. Nodding and shaking their head. Can't afford that. Oh, maybe Santa will bring, or maybe they'll bring some toffee.
Yeah, but Kew was great because we used to do groups as well, rather than seeing kids individually. I mean, we'd do larger groups, and we'd get them to do a bit of a sing-song, you know.
Oh, that's nice.
You know, and I'd say to them, who wants to sing a Christmas song? And they'd all go, yeah. And okay, everybody, let's do Bohemian Rhapsody after 3, you know, and then
go, the archetypal Christmas song.
Yeah, I'm sure it was number 1 at Christmas sometime.
It's been number 1, I'm sure, probably somewhere, sometime, forever.
But good heavens, I mean, Santa again over the years, that's kept me. I don't know, being a clown, being a Santa, being Fred Flintstone or a Power Ranger. I mean,
these are all the theatrical archetypes, aren't they?
Well, yeah.
Have you ever been inside a panto cab or a horse?
Oh, my goodness gracious,
so if you have, then you've probably ticked off most of the boxes
I
there.
Have. Did you do that job as well?
I've been the back end of a cow.
Yeah,
been
right.
the back end of a panto cow.
Was it a cow or a horse? No, I think I was a horse.
It was a horse, but I was a cow when
Okay.
when I did that particular when I essayed that role.
Were you inside a theatre?
I wasn't. It was for Ben and Jerry's PR stunt.
Ah, right, okay. I think
So I've never been one in an actual panto.
Yeah, right, okay. No, well, this was another. I mean, I must admit, my back of a horse, and then occasionally the front of a horse, because it was an all-day gig. Was
You've been promoted.
It was. Yeah, yes, it wasn't.
Yeah,
was.
you've worked your way up to the front there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Trusted me with being
the leader.
The leader, the navigator, looking where we were going. But I remember wandering around the streets of Hammersmith, promoting some such, product or other. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so panto horse, yes, thank you for reminding me of that. I had forgotten. I'd forgotten that particular one.
Yeah, it's like paying your dues, you've got to have done these things.
Yeah.
And panto horse or cow is one of those.
Yeah. And I just know when I get home this evening, all these stories are going to come out again, as you realise, some of the bizarre and odd things that you've ended up doing. Dressing up, that has been a significant part of my life, I have to say. But I mean, just looking through my list here as well, there is some more dressing up to come. But I also did some work. I used to run quizzes as well.
Oh yeah,
and that's another one
that's another popular kind of sideline for people.
Yeah, and I was very lucky actually, because my local pub where I lived said they were looking for someone to do the quiz, and I said, well, I'll do it. It was only once a month.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a particularly arduous gig. And they said, how much do you want us to pay you? And I said, well, you know what? I'm thinking like an actor. I said, I tell you what, don't pay me in money, pay me in food and beer.
Absolute. It's a currency.
And he looked at me and he said, are you sure? I said, yeah. I mean, I'll bring my family. And so I used to bring the family, Nicky and Harry, my brother and his daughter, because I did the quiz with my brother. The two of us, we were kind of like the Todd duo.
Right.
We were quite funny, actually. We really looked forward to it. And so we'd get dinner in the pub, which was really nice dinner. And then they'd just give us the drinks all night.
Brilliant.
So for once a month, I thought a free night out. Everyone gets a bite to eat.
Winner.
Yeah, what's not to like,
Yeah. Was it a quiz you wrote yourself, or was it one of those where you were sent like a quiz pack?
Yeah, well, they started off by sending us a quiz pack.
Okay.
But they weren't very good.
I know.
So we started to do them, write our own.
Yeah.
In fact, the quiz pack was a bit too easy, we thought. So and generic.
Yeah.
And I thought, some of these questions, what's the capital of Belgium? Oh, come on, who cares? So me and my brother Philip, who ran the quiz, we would start writing questions ourselves. And over the course of a month, you could easily come up with 40, 50 questions that are contemporary and relevant.
Yeah.
And funny, and a bit daft, And we just have a play around and have a bit of fun with it, and it was enormously popular. We got great crowds in there,
I used to do one at the Prospect of Whitby.
In goodness!
And one thing I liked to do was a simple true or false round.
Yeah.
And what I do is I make up false things that sounded like they might be true.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see people's reactions. I always remember a friend of ours, Layla, was doing the quiz.
Yeah.
And one of the ones was, I said, true or false, David Baddiel was a contestant on Blockbusters. And Layla's face, she was like, yes, I remember it. He got through to the third. She was inventing this whole scenario of him getting through to the third gold run. In fact, it's not true.
Yeah.
But it felt like he had a ring of truth about it. And in her mind, she was picturing it. And it was like a false memory that had been implanted there just by saying true or false.
Clever.
And she's like, oh, yeah. So I always used to enjoy making up stuff for the true or false round and seeing what the sort of false stuff that people would think. That's true.
I know that pub well, though. The Prospects of
great pub, yes,
fantastic pub. But you know what? I've always avoided. I say avoided. It wasn't a deliberate decision, but I've never actually worked in a pub. I never actually, pulled any pints behind the bar. But the nearest I got, and this is going to sound a bit middle class and posh, but I got a job at the Royal Academy.
Okay.
In Piccadilly.
Yeah.
And once a year they had this big event which was called the London Original Print Fair.
Okay.
And it was a big deal, and the artists from all over the world would come along with their original prints, And now an original print, if you don't know, is just, when you sometimes see pictures or paintings and they've got like a number and it'll say number 12 out of 50 or number 17 out of 100 or whatever.
Yeah.
Their original prints are essentially the first copy from an original plate. And what makes the prints valuable is when the original block is destroyed.
So it's limited edition.
Yeah, so it's a limited edition print. And the block has to be destroyed so that, you've got some sense of integrity and, efficacy when it comes to...
So you can't spend a fortune on print number 20 and then somebody just runs off another 1,000 copies.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly it. So original prints are great for artists because they're more affordable, and people can, you can generate income quite quickly. And so, as a consequence, people like Picasso and Van Gogh, Matisse, all the great artists, when they were struggling or when they were first out of art college, they would, produce original prints to sell quickly, so that it could just keep themselves going.
Yeah.
But the job I had, as well as sort of selling tickets to the event and making sure that the stallholders were happy with helping them hang their prints, what have you, was they'd always have a gala evening that was attended by royalty. So me and a whole load of other actors would be responsible for making sure that these people were fed and watered. And we would be walking out with silver trays full of fine champagne.
Nice.
And I'd just wander around and people would just help themselves. So just sort of, approach a group of people who were sort of networking and chatting. They'd see me turn around and grab a glass of champagne, and then my tray was empty. I'd go back to the kitchen and fill it all up again. Well, you can just imagine this kitchen. It was chaos. There were hundreds of bottles of champagne everywhere.
Amazing.
Hundreds of glasses, and a team of people filling glasses and putting them on trays. But also, because we're all actors, we'd all have the occasional, sip.
Well, why not be churlish not to?
It's one of the perks of the job,
Yes.
So it'd be like, every time you went back into the kitchen, you'd neck a quick glass of champagne, and slowly, as the course of the evening went on, you get slightly...
yes, wobbly with the tray.
Yeah, and I can remember one of these evenings getting really quite inappropriately chatty, with the people. It's essentially, the job is just to shut up and carry the champagne. But I'd be chatting to people and getting a bit more interested in people than really I ought to be, But that was a lovely job, not only because of where it was, the Royal Academy, and being able to access all the artwork as well, but it was just a fascinating environment that you'd never see. And this is the incredible thing about some of the jobs that we do. I don't know that I would have known, A, to go to the Royal Academy, and B, to go specifically for the original print fair, which was just amazing. And many of my colleagues, many of my actor friends, would bought prints themselves, and held on to them, because you could pick them up for 20 quid.
Amazing.
Some were much more expensive than that.
Yeah.
But you could pick up prints, for a song, and actually have a genuine piece of, valuable art, But so great to experience these environments that otherwise you kind of wouldn't get anywhere near.
Oh yeah.
And so and then I'll talk to you about the Chicken Tonight as well, because I'd mentioned earlier on, didn't I, about having a garage full.
They've been paid in Chicken Tonight.
Yeah, been paid in Chicken Tonight.
Well, that's the story I definitely want to hear.
Yeah. Well,
so for Chicken Tonight, were you a chicken?
I was indeed.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was indeed. In fact, if you remember the commercials, as soon as
I feel like chicken. I remember the catchphrase.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was, but it was. I feel like Chicken Tonight.
Exactly.
Chicken Tonight.
And then
people were doing a little sort of flappy dance with their arms. That's it. Like the Birdie song.
And if you ever wondered how they managed to capture people doing that, well, what they did was the people making the commercial would take me and a couple of other actors. I'd be dressed as a chicken. The other actors would be James Lovell was on the job.
Oh yes.
And John Hench. And they would be like the compares and kind of getting people and talking to people. I'd be the bloke in the chicken suit starting off the flappy dance thing, and people would just instinctively start to do it as well. And they'd be caught on film, then the whole thing would be spliced together, and there's your commercial.
Right.
Okay. So I did that. I kid you not. It took them 6 weeks of touring the country on a on a coach, including the actors, and I think there was only 3, maybe 4 of us. There was a crew of 50. We were full, this coach. I mean, everybody involved in this production. It was an enormous production. This stuff, Chicken Tonight, sold like nobody's business. I mean, it was massively popular. And we toured the country. We went to every shopping centre you could imagine. And I'd get out, get the chicken costume suit on, and then sort of flap my wings, you know. And anyway, this job came and went, and got paid handsomely. You know, chicken rates were much better than actor rates. I kid you not. You know, people really wanted. I remember James Lovell ringing me and saying, "Jeremy, can you do chicken?" I said, "I think so." And then he told me how much it was. I said, "Yeah, I can do chicken.
Yeah.
I can do chicken."
Now, it's important to mention at this point that James Lovell is a friend of ours, and not James Lovell, the astronaut in the moon landings, because I know for a fact that once Oxford University phoned up James and said, "Oh, is this James Lovell?" He said, "Yes," and they said, "We'd like you to give a talk." And it was around about this time, and he said, "Oh," and he was quite confused by this, and he said, "What do you want me to talk about my PR work with Chicken Tonight?" And the voice on the other end of the phone sort of said, "Oh, are you not James Lovell, the astronaut?" He's like, no,
he said, "I'm James Lovell, the chicken wrangler
Tonight guy,
the chicken wrangler." Yeah. Oh well, that'd have been an interesting one for the.
Yeah, imagine if he just took the job and said, just immediately said, "Yes, I'll do it. I'll turn up."
Was it one of those debates at the Oxford Society?
I have no idea what it was, but
that would have been brilliant.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, but after this particular 6-week stint finished, they had another week that cropped up, and essentially I was in a shopping centre somewhere in London, and this articulated lorry turned up. It was vast, and it was just full of thousands and thousands of jars of Chicken Tonight. There were pallets and pallets and pallets of it, and our job was just to give it away. And in the end, there was just so much of it left. They just said, "Look, guys, do you want any? Take what you want." You know, I filled a transit van.
Amazing.
I filled a blue transit van. I drove it back to my flat in Putney, and I filled my garage with Chicken Tonight, thinking this will come in useful.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was still giving it away a year later.
No way.
Yeah, and I remember going on tour in a play. It was Agatha Christie, Murder at the Vicarage or something like that. Murder in the Vicarage, and it was a long tour. And every new venue I went to, I was driving around in this blue transit van. I would make sure I had plenty of supplies of Chicken Tonight, and take it up and give it away to the cast, who were actually a bunch of actors, big cast, 14 in the cast. And so I'm getting rid of like 30 or 40 jars of Chicken Tonight every week, apart from this one week when people started bringing it back. So they said, "Oh, Jeremy, thank you, but it's not a cup of tea." So I actually got some of it given back to me because they didn't like it.
Right.
But anyway, eventually, I managed to get rid of these, what must have been 200 or 300 jars of Chicken Tonight, and Nicola was able to park her car back in the garage.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that
you must have been sick of it.
Oh, good heavens! Yeah. Yeah, but it was a great job. It was a great job, because it really was well paid, and it's the odd thing, it's the jobs you do outside of acting that kind of keep the bank manager happy, and it's the acting jobs that feed the soul.
Yes.
And so all these jobs, while we're laughing about them and having to, and remembering them fondly. I mean, without them, I still wouldn't be an actor. I wouldn't be sitting here today about to start rehearsals on Monday, for the next tour.
And what are you doing now?
I'm doing a couple of plays, actually. One is a Durbridge, Francis Durbridge. He's a writer who basically took over the mantle from Agatha Christie of, great thrillers. And he was, if you imagine Christie, but set in the 70s.
Okay.
You've got Francis Durbridge. It's called Suddenly at Home. And then I'm doing a Ray Cooney farce for the same company.
Wow.
So we do a couple of weeks of the Durbridge, and then we do 4 weeks of Wife Begins at 40, which is a classic farce.
Do your trousers fall down at any point?
I don't know yet.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah, but the bizarre thing is, after having said everything I've said about dressing up, the opening scene in Wife Begins at 40 is a fancy dress scene. Now I come on dressed as a rabbit.
There you go.
Yeah,
and these things come Easter back, Bunny. Comes full circle.
Yeah, so there you go. So I've got all the experience I need to play this role.
Yeah, you can draw on those life experiences.
Yeah. So that's what's happening next. So I'm just having a look through my list here. Yeah, I mean, there's some other jobs, I mean, some of them were positively normal, by comparison. Yeah. I worked for a company who needed people to just sort of basically sell flats, but they knew that I wasn't a salesman. I mean, I wasn't an estate agent. They just needed basically someone who to sit in the show flat and just open the door, let people in, let people walk around and then give them some information and then off they go, And again, I did that for, several years, sort of on and off, And again, bumping into people populated by other actors, all doing whatever they can to get, to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And that's just reminded me as well, because I retrained at one stage to be a drama teacher. I spent I think it was a 20-week course, and it was designed specifically for actors who wanted to be drama teachers. Now, there were certain conditions on where you could work. So you couldn't work in a regular state school, but you could work in FE colleges, you could work preschool, and you could work in anywhere where they could essentially employ someone who was a practitioner, but I didn't really have a teaching certificate. So I spent 20 weeks doing this sort of transitional training from actor to drama teacher. And by an extraordinary coincidence, I was living in Putney at the time, as I mentioned earlier on, with a garage full of chicken tonight. And I'm walking down Putney High Street, and walking towards me is my first ever girlfriend. Now, I'm talking about 14 years old.
Okay.
And this girl's walking towards me, and I have not seen her since we left school. So it was probably 30 years since I'd seen her. But we instantly recognised each other and stopped and said hello, and we had this chat on the high street. What are you up to? And I said, I'm an actor, and I'm blah-de-blah-de-blah. And I said, what do you do? She said, well, I'm the headmistress at the local Montessori school. She said, you don't know anybody who's a drama teacher, do you? I said,
wow.
I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, we need someone urgently. A drama teacher's just left. He's got a job. I said, I've just qualified this week as a drama teacher. She said,
what are the chances?
Yeah, I kid you not. Anyway, I went down to school, she was the headmistress, Barbara her name was, and I got the job, and I was a drama teacher at Montessori school I did a 3-month term, and then I could have stayed on, but some other job cropped up, and off I went, But I can remember I worked with the group who were 3 years old, and then the group who were 4 years old. And in my naivety, I thought, well, I've got one lesson plan here. And what works for 3-year-olds surely will work for 4-year-olds. Well, my God, I could not have been more wrong.
What's the kind of cognitive difference between 3 and 4?
Well, you know what? It's significant because the 3-year-olds all want to work together.
Okay.
They want to work as a group, as a team. So we would do storytelling, and we'd make it sort of fluid, and we'd move them around the space, and we'd sort of stimulate their imagination and their senses, and create, the environment that we were in, whether it was a rainy forest or something. We'd make the noises and everything, and the kids would love it, but they'd all want to do it together. But as soon as you got to the 4-year-olds and you tried to do the same thing, they wanted like individual parts. So somebody wanted to be the tree frog, or somebody else wanted to be the parrot, and they all had to have something different to do. By that stage, they'd all had enough of working as a group. They were sort of developing their sense of individuality.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and so actually, I worked very hard on that, and wrote loads and loads, because every session I did had to be fresh and new and stimulating and different and building on what you knew they were capable of doing. And actually, it's not easy being a teacher.
No, I'm sure it's not.
Constantly coming up, and I was only doing a day a week on that job, but it was full on. It was full on, but it was a great job. My mum was a teacher.
Oh yeah.
So I think sort of teaching was something I was familiar with, and felt comfortable doing, but it wasn't acting.
No.
So off I went, and sadly I've never seen Barbara since, but we are Facebook friends.
Oh,
so I know she's
that counts.
Yeah.
in this, that matters.
Yeah.
There's lots of people you just never see apart from on Facebook.
Yeah. So I know that she's all right, and yeah. So I don't know. I'm looking through my list here, and we've been through most things. I mean, the other thing that I did that I haven't mentioned about was probably my least favourite job was I got a job with one company and wanted me to sell. I was get people to sign up for credit cards.
Oh, that sounds like proper like hell job.
Oh, I did a morning.
Really?
I did a morning. Yeah, and I had to go stand in a supermarket and just stand in an aisle. And as people were wandering past doing their shopping, I'd say, "Have you thought about signing up for a credit card?" And I'll tell you what, I think I probably didn't do a morning. I think I did an hour.
Yeah.
And I thought, I can't do this anymore.
Because
I said,
it must be quite soul destroying. Because not only are you stood there in the supermarket, but you're also aware that you're probably doing something that's like to the detriment of all the people you're trying to try to encourage to sign up for this.
Yeah. And that was exactly it. I mean, it was one of those jobs where I felt. It was what's the word? It was just a values clash.
Yeah.
I thought I don't agree with what I'm doing, so why am I doing it? And I don't think I've ever done it before or since. But I kind of walked off that job and I rang them up. I said I'm sorry, but I can't do this. And as I was talking about that, I suddenly got a flash of another job that I think you and I might have done together. Did you do that job up in Warwick Castle?
I don't think so. What job was it?
It was an overnight job, and it was promoting a hotel chain.
No, I don't think so.
And we were in beds that had been set up outside the castle.
No, I'd remember that.
You remember that?
I'd remember that one.
It was just that it was so completely daft. We all had to be different characters, famous sort of movie characters.
Okay.
And I was Crocodile Dundee.
All right.
Somebody else was Harrison Ford from Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Yeah.
There was Bond, and you name it. There was Disney princesses, and for some bizarre reason, this was the theme, sort of famous movie stars. But the shot they were looking for was us clambering into these big double beds, under the night sky with the backdrop of Warwick Castle, And of course, it took them all night, pretty much, to get this shot.
Yeah.
Which they did in the end, but again, not your normal way of,
Yeah, because one interesting thing is, it's people who do lookalike work.
Oh yeah.
So you were doing a kind of lookalike, but not a lookalike. Because I've met people, been on jobs with people who are like lookalikes.
Yeah.
And inevitably they've got no kind of sense of humour about the thing that they do.
Yeah.
They take it a bit seriously.
Uh-huh.
And the thing about lookalikes is the chances of somebody looking exactly like somebody else and having their personality and talent is just not going to happen. So it's one or the other. So so you'd make jokes with them and they just look blankly at you. And I remember one of the things we often got employed to do was be a fake paparazzi. I'm sure you've done this.
I have.
Where they give you a camera, big flash, they put you in the sort of outfit that no paparazzi ever actually wears, which is a
with the big
raincoat and a
fancy
trilby.
American cameras.
Big flash guns, and they're just flashing away.
Yeah.
But we did this job, and all these lookalikes turned up, and what we do is we just get their names wrong all the time. So the Anthony Hopkins lookalike would turn up and be shouting, "Oh yeah, Bob Hoskins, over here." So we make up somebody who's a bit like, and they never have a sense of humour about it. They become, "Oh, I'm Anthony Hopkins." What do you mean?
Yeah.
So Tom Cruise would turn up and would be like just making stuff up. "Oh, Sting!" I'm not Sting. Just really ridiculous things.
Yeah. I did do that job. I can't remember who I did it with, but
paparazzi.
Paparazzi, yeah.
It's quite a common one to know.
And it was silly and fun and
yeah. So it's one of those things where some people employ people to dress up with cameras as paparazzi to make an event look more like celebrity than it is.
Yeah.
And so they'll get 10 actors, dress them up, give them cameras with big flash guns.
Yeah.
And say, just stand outside, shouting, "Oi, over here!" There's no, back then it was when cameras still had film, so there was just no filming the cameras ever.
That's right.
We're just flashing off the flash guns. To make it look like an event.
I also had a job as well, for sort of similar-ish. I worked for a company who used to produce, and produce is the right word, but they used to produce bar mitzvahs.
Okay.
And a well-heeled bar mitzvah can be a really expensive and big do, a bit like a wedding.
Yeah.
And I can remember doing dozens and dozens of bar mitzvahs. And the producer, a guy called Larry, would go to the family and talk to the family about what the kids liked, and he'd design this whole evening's entertainment based around what the child whose bar mitzvah it was, what their interests were. So if they were into the movies and aliens, then there'd be a big alien sort of segment, and it would be quite overly produced. There's a lot of money spent on these things. But one of the roles I used to play quite regularly, and unfortunately always used to go down quite well, I used to play the spurned lover. So my job would be in the middle of a speech that the father invariably was making, would be for me to run in as a spurned lover, with my shirt, necktie, sort of slightly undone, a little bit dishevelled and slightly drunk, coming in and saying, and basically throwing myself at the feet of the mother or the wife, etc., and saying, oh, how could you do this to me? You told me you were going to leave him. You said you, and basically come up with this whole thing. Of course, people always cotton on pretty quickly what was going on.
Yeah.
But again, it was one of those moments where heart stop moments where you think, if they think I'm really being serious, then I might end up getting thrown out. But every now and again, people would misinterpret what was going on, and I remember doing a Christmas dinner where we were fake hotel staff.
Okay.
So this company were turning up for their Christmas dinner. 100 people turning up for Christmas dinner.
Were you comedy fake? Or
we were comedy
meant
fake.
to get things wrong?
Yeah, we were comedy fake. But the setup was beautiful because we'd be there at the door greeting them. I was the manager. The various other people, their waitresses would be there. All actors, all with a script and all with a set of business that we knew had to evolve over the course of the evening. And so we'd take them to their chairs, we'd serve them wine, we'd genuinely take their orders, and it looked to all intents and purposes as though everything was just happening as normally as possible. Then things would start going wrong. Okay, and the conceit was that there was a narrative. There was a waitress played by the wonderful Sian Richardson.
Oh yes, I know Sian.
And Sian was my girlfriend, but unbeknownst to me, she was having an affair with the odd job man, played by a guy called James Quarton. And I find this out, that James is having an affair with my girlfriend, whom I'm engaged to.
Ooh.
And so this kind of dance occurs as we're serving people their wine and their food, whilst at the same time having this row across the tables, and people would start to get a little bit agitated.
Well,
and
I think you would, to find yourself in that situation.
Yeah, and I remember Sian saying to me, I can't believe that you're talking to me like this, and I'd say, what do you mean, me talking to you like this? How long have you been having an affair with him? Like, look at him, the man's had got two pennies to rub together with me. So we'd be having this quite naturalistic, conversation. And then at one point, I remember grabbing hold of James, who's playing my nemesis.
Nemesis, yes.
And we started to roll about on the floor, and then we threw each other kind of into the kitchen through those swinging doors. Do you remember those swinging doors?
Yeah, I mean, if you could have a fight in a movie.
Yeah, and then brilliantly, we both flew out again through these swinging doors, at which point a member of the company came up to me and said, "Look, I'm really sorry, mate," he said. "This is incredibly embarrassing. I'm sorry that you're having marital troubles, mate, but this is not the time or the place to be airing your dirty linen. Would you mind just sort yourself out so we can get on and enjoy our Christmas dinner?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm really sorry, mate. I'm really sorry, mate." And me and James, we disappeared backstage and we're going... we completely hoodwinked them.
Yes.
Yeah. And they realised that something was wrong when, at the end of the meal, somebody pulls out a gun and gets shot.
Right.
At that point, people are going...
it's all set up.
Okay. And then we all stand up and take a bow. And anyway, I never did speak to that guy again, the one that came up to me. But he must have thought, oh, what a mug. What a mug.
Yeah.
Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Oh, good heavens, yeah. So, I mean, that same company, did lots of those gigs. They were called Accidental, which was a great name. They also do lots of murder mysteries.
Another staple.
Another staple, yeah. And God heavens, murder mysteries were, again, perfect for an actor. Because not only did you get paid, but you get fed as well.
Yeah.
So you get a proper dinner. And great fun. And the whole thing was kind of, again, structured. So, but only a kind of a beginning, a middle and an end, and maybe a couple of signposts between the beginning and the middle and between the middle and the end. But otherwise, the whole thing is kind of improvised.
Yes, I remember. I used to DJ at those in my days when I was DJing. Yeah, I used to see a lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever work with Mark Hayden Searle, I think his name was? Yeah.
Ooh, the name rings a bell, but yeah.
But he did a lot of murder mysteries.
Okay.
And they were just great fun.
Yeah. Are they still popular now? Because I remember there was a period when they were really like early 2000s.
Yeah.
There was a lot of them about. I used to see them a lot advertised, even on the tube and things like that.
Yeah. I haven't done one for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was only a couple of years ago, and I did a week of them out at this venue down in Sussex somewhere, a beautiful country house. I went back every night for about 3 or 4 nights, and they were rammed every night. Yeah, so I think that's still happening.
Yeah. Right. Have you ever? Do you get in any way typecast in the murder mysteries?
Yeah, well, no, actually, I'll be honest with you. I play a lot of the time. I used to play this character called Clunge, who was the butler.
Okay.
Clunge the butler.
Nice.
And so my job was, just to play this fairly dull, stoic butler, but he knew everything that was going on. So really, I was just the conveyor of information. So my job would be to listen out for what everyone was saying and then just regurgitate it in a commonsensical way, so that people kind of understood that what was going on.
Yeah, so they might have a chance, because there was a sort of prize element to it.
Yes, absolutely.
So if somebody guessed who the murderer was, they would get a bottle of champagne or something.
People took it very seriously.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. And of course, you'd sort of feed in various clues during the course of the evening.
Yes. Because I'd noticed there'd be different tables. So there'd be the table that's taking it all very seriously and writing down all the clues, and there'd be the table that were just getting drunk and
We had one of the last ones I did, one of these ones a couple of years ago. I was actually the murderer, and he was the owner of the family fortune, and he'd inherited vast amounts of money, but for some reason he was intent on bumping people off. And by some bizarre coincidence, the script had been written, and the person who was responsible, there was another character who'd also committed some crimes, and he was an ex sort of war criminal, a German, and he was known as the Flea. And you only knew it was the Flea because if you managed to kind of get his shirt off, he had a tattoo of a flea on his shoulder. And we couldn't believe it when a member of our audience had a tattoo of a flea on her shoulder. A real tattoo in the audience, nothing to do with us.
Right.
And
what are the chances?
What are the chances? So anyway, we had to use her. We just had to use it. So she got drawn into the whole thing. And she ended up, she didn't win, but she was found guilty, for simply having a matching tattoo. I thought, what a bizarre coincidence.
Yeah, I bet you never thought that would happen, getting that tattoo.
I remember going backstage and saying, have you seen a lady sitting on table 4? Go and have a look. What do you she's got a tattoo of a flea on her left shoulder. I'm serious. Go and have a look. I thought, blimey, you've got to use this.
Okay.
Yeah. So all these bizarre places that you go to, all these beautiful country homes, and I remember being out at Wootton Hall, I think it is in Dorking, an absolutely spectacular country hall, and a wonderful history associated with it. The people that have lived there, these amazing gardens, and invariably now they've been sort of turned into, boutique hotels or something like that. Yeah. And again, probably too expensive to ever afford to stay there, but to go there as an employee,
yes, you get
to be able to sample their wine.
It's kind of a bit of a jolly.
Totally, it doesn't feel like work,
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely cracking fun, cracking fun. And again, I've done that for years and years and years. And come December, they kick off and off you go again for another 3 weeks of mad nights, you know, at the Charing Cross Hotel or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know. So goodness gracious me. I think that's just about it. I think I might have pretty much exhausted it.
Well, that's
definitely
that's an exhaustive list there you've got, and
there's definitely lots of other stuff I've just forgotten about.
It's amazing when you sit down and start thinking about it, and even when you start talking to somebody else about it, and things that you've done yourself just start popping up.
All that bizarre stuff we did for the ministry.
Oh yeah.
All that Ben and Jerry stuff you were talking about was the one on bikes, cycling around on bikes.
There was some cycling around on. For those listening, there's a company called Ministry of Fun who do a lot of PR stunts. That's what you're mentioning. I remember being employed to make weird bicycles that were like flying machines. So I got like a job doing woodwork. Yeah. And then we had to cycle them around London, these contraptions that were constantly falling apart because me and Yatesy, who made them, had no woodworking skills. So we were making these machines, like knocking them together with nails and gaffer tape. And then you take them out and they fall to pieces. Yeah. But there you go. So cutting corners there. Fake demos, fake demonstrating, all that kind of stuff.
Did you ever work at Hamleys selling demoing games?
Never been a kind of seller person. I've never done that. But by demonstration, I mean like fake people outside things with placards.
Oh right, no.
Like fake protests.
Yeah, yes, I've done fake protests. I've got some great pictures of fake protests. It was Smile Day or something like that. Happiness for a day or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
And of course, everyone was miserable as heck. But I actually did have a job at Hamleys demonstrating toys. And I remember being approached by Patsy Kensit, who at the time was married to...
Was it Liam Gallagher?
Liam Gallagher, yeah. Who was just sort of stood behind, sort of moodily, you know, and she was asking... Obviously, I looked quite approachable at the time, although I didn't work for Hamleys. Yeah. She wanted to know where something was, and so I think I was able to point her in the right direction. But I was demonstrating a board game called Masquerade, you know, and it was tough work, you know, because, I mean, you'd be there all day on your feet, trying to be friendly and positive, you know, and selling, and basically selling, you know. Yeah. But, you know, and you mentioned that, you know, Yatesy, Liam Yates,
the artist, yeah,
the artist, Liam Yates, that we met again doing, you know, out of work actors work, you know, and we would be setting up video games. We worked for a company who used to promote video games, you know, so Liam was particularly good at all the technical side of things, you know, and so we'd be doing things like the car show. That doesn't seem to happen anymore in England, but once upon a time there was a car show every 2 years, you know, and we used to do the car show, and our client was Skoda, who were big into rally, and so they were a very successful rally team. And I can remember one of the jobs I had to do was interview, at the time, probably the world's most famous rally driver, a guy called Stig Blomqvist. And he was a very famous Finnish man. I think he was Finnish. People will tell me if he's not, but I remember having to interview him, you know, just routinely, just as the, you know, the odd things that you do in the middle of a day, you know, whilst, you know, Liam had set up these sort of fake driving experiences. Now, in the early days of video games, where you had a fake steering wheel that would kind of shudder and vibrate as the car was going around the corner. You know, it was very early days of that kind of technology. But again, years and years and years of working with Liam and a lovely bloke called Simon Lejeune, who ran that particular company. You know, so we can just imagine. I mean, a typical month for me. You know, I had a couple of murder mysteries, you know, a couple of gigs selling air lattes, you know, milk froths, you know, a couple of gigs maybe, you know, working for a company doing the video games, a bit of stuff for the Ministry of Fun, you know, doing promo, handing out leaflets, you know, in the morning, you know, or you know, doing a couple of stints in a theatre in the evening, being an usher selling ice cream, hanging people's coats up. It was just a chaotic kind of way of making a living. But what I learned was that I always kind of It always worked.
Yeah.
I never knew at the beginning of the month what my month was going to look like, but it always worked. Always looked like something. I mean, I always got to pay the bills, and it's just thanks to some of those bizarre people out there.
And looking back on it all, are you happy that you did all that? Was it a worthwhile, positive experience and something that just gives
absolutely
you
no regrets whatsoever?
Yeah.
No regrets. I mean, the thing was, the reason why I've done so many of jobs is because I spent, to be frank, let's be honest about it, I spent a lot of time not acting.
Yeah.
And I sit down and calculate the amount of time that I've actually spent acting. And here I am, 30 years into the job. And I reckon at the end of this year, if I'm lucky, I will have spent a total of 16, maybe 18, maybe 20 weeks actually acting. 20 out of 52. Now that is 32 weeks where I still need to work.
Yeah.
And this is a good year for me, to be able to say, I've already got 8 weeks under my belt. I've got 7 weeks coming up. I've got 2-3 weeks coming up at the end of the week. That's 18. Maybe some other stuff will crop up, So 20 out of 52 is probably quite a high percentage. So the rest of the time, you've got to be doing stuff, And the nearer it is to having a performance angle, the kind of more I can justify it.
Yeah.
And the further away you get from an actual performance, the more you become slightly disgruntled, and it becomes like one of those heart sink jobs.
Yes.
But I've had plenty of them. But I don't regret it. I absolutely do not regret it. Not for one single minute have I ever regretted the decision 32 years ago, to go to drama school and train. It's been exactly what I wanted. Just an unknown, chaotic mess.
That's fantastic.
And may it continue.
Absolutely. And on that note, an unknown chaotic mess is a good way to end the show. So thank you for joining us, Jeremy Todd, on While I Was Resting. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason.
While I was resting. Hey buddies, thanks for listening, and a special thanks to our lovely guest, Mr. Jeremy Todd. In the next episode, we'll be chatting to the legend that is Tina Turner Tea Lady, otherwise known as Miss Tracy Collins.